Hey class, this is Katrina Berg, and this is your week 3 additional resource video. Wanted to go over some key points in the chapters that you're reading this week. They include segmentation, targeting, positioning, importing, exporting, sourcing, as well as looking at global market entry strategies. A quick reminder on your discussion for this week. Do take a look at Porter's Five Forces in Chapter 16. Chapter 16 is not part of your assigned reading, but it's always a good idea, or it is a good idea, to just touch base on Porter's Five Forces. You'll find that information and content in Chapter 16. If you have questions, let me know. So let's get started on the highlights. Emerging markets. When we talk about emerging markets, those are markets that are desirable in today's economy, world, business sector. These economies are not fully developed yet, or these markets, I should say, but they are expected to grow and expand. Some examples of emerging markets include India, China, Brazil. In China, for example, there is an emerging middle class that has disposable income that is attractive to businesses today. Let's talk about segmentation as a quick review. Segmentation is categorizing a group of customers. Targeting is looking at that segmented target market and choosing which has the best potential for profit. And then finally, positioning is differentiating your product and brand in the market. So when we're looking at global market segmentation, we are looking at choosing a marketing mix that will provide the best response for you, or the best return. You can choose standardization, or you can choose an adapted mix. Standardization means the same product service, or an adapted mix means you might change some things in that country that you're expanding to, or that region. You, of course, as you should know by now, when you're looking at segments, you are looking at demographics, you're looking at income, population, age, gender. You can also segment by behavior, psychographics, and benefits. So just be sure you have a clear understanding of what that looks like, and then look at it in a global context. After you choose your segment, some questions to ask yourself. How attractive is it really? Why are you interested in this area or region? Is it because your boss potentially thinks it's the hot new market? And you also need to evaluate your research on that. Is there fear of missing out because everybody's going into that market? You feel like you should go into that market. And another potential pitfall is, are you relying on existing contacts? So for example, because you have a contact on the ground in that new market, it's attractive for you. So just be aware and ask yourself those questions as you're looking into entering a new market. There are pitfalls or biases that you might have that should be explored and looked at. When you're assessing your opportunity, there are three key criteria that you should be evaluating: the current size of the market and anticipated growth. Competition, what's the competition doing? Are they there? Do they exist? Compatibility and feasibility of the target. Again, three key criteria for assessing an opportunity. You could potentially achieve first mover advantage by moving into a market where no one is yet. There are pitfalls to that, but you also could get in and capture the market, but you may not get that return on investment immediately. Let's move on to positioning. Positioning, we're looking at attributes, benefits, quality, price. The global consumer today is somebody who is brand aware. They expect quality, and there's a cosmopolitan image. So just be aware that that consumer segment exists and is an attractive market to potentially position your product in. Moving on, let's talk about exports. Your book talks about export selling versus export marketing, and there is a difference. Export selling is really looking at selling out of the origin country, whereas export marketing is looking to increase market share by maintaining production in your own country. So when you're looking at considering exporting, you're looking at doing your research, you're looking at making a go or no go decision. You are looking at vendors and distributors, and you're also creating a marketing plan with them. So if all those pieces sort of fall into place, exporting is something that you may want to do, and that's part of the process of what I just mentioned. You can also go to trade shows or trade fairs. Countries will host those, and that's where you can sort of get everybody in the same room um, and speak to them about the viability of going into that market. Moving on, let's talk about some of the challenges in exporting. You're looking at logistical issues. You're looking at providing customer service and services in general. How do you provide those? Legal issues, of course. Sales, how do you get sales going? And then also general market information. Government does play a role in exports. That includes tax incentives, subsidies, export assistance. So understand what supports are in place for you in your potential market area. Government also can use tariffs as a mechanism for trade control. Essentially, management also needs to make a decision in something that's called sourcing. Where is that product or service obtained? Outsourcing is a concern, obviously, when a company is investing overseas but selling the product here potentially. And moving on, let's finish with market entry strategies. Let's talk about those. You have licensing, and this is essentially where an asset becomes available in exchange for royalties or some other form of compensation. The benefits are that it's produced locally and there's autonomy. The disadvantage is there's no market control and may have a short lifespan if that information or that licensing, the company that is using that information is then able to do it on its own. I won't go further into that right now, but again, just be aware that licensing is a market entry strategy. Investment is another one, or foreign direct investment. And that's when you put plants, equipment, or other assets on the ground. Finally, cooperative alliances, and here we're looking at strategic international alliances, or global strategic partnerships. And this really is a much larger scale collaboration and effort in place. So that's it for my summary for the week, class. Let me know if you have any questions about anything, and thanks for listening.